projects like ours foster an opportunity for stories to be told that might otherwise never be told. People, if they are given the chance to talk about the deep and the raw and the things they're afraid of or the things they're dreaming of or hoping for or whatever, they will.
Yeah.
And if you foster that environment where it is totally okay to lay it all out, beautiful things can happen.
Hi, thank you for joining us on Coffee Talk Tuesday today. I am here with Mike Angeleri, and
Hello.
we just connected recently, and I wanted to hear your story. You wanted to hear my story, so I figured we'd get a coffee talk out of it.
Sounds good.
So tell us what you do. What is it that you do?
I run a Facebook page project called Humans of Salt Lake City.
Very cool.
And it was inspired by Humans of New York.
Okay.
He started his project in 2010. And in 2013, I read an article on what was then called MSNBC.com about Humans of New York.
Right.
And I remember thinking, what a neat idea.
Yeah.
You know, he just talks to people, ordinary people, and somehow these stories resonate with people.
Yeah.
And I thought, I wonder if anybody's doing that here. And nobody was.
Wow.
There was no such thing as Humans of Salt Lake City. So I jumped onto Facebook, created a page.
That's awesome.
Had no clue what I was going to do.
Right.
I have an icon.
Yeah.
And I thought, well, you know, all I can do is try. I'm going to walk
Right.
out there, just see what kind of people I run into. It was October, and I was walking through the Main Street Plaza at Temple Square, and I ran into one of the gardeners who were planting the tulip bulbs for the spring. And I approached her, and I told her what I was doing. I asked her, could I take your picture? She said yes, so I took her picture, and then all I could think to ask was, if you could give the world one piece of advice, what would it be? And she said, do something you love every day. And that was, to me, the perfect segue into this project.
Absolutely.
Most of the time, the stories that I hear are stories that I believe other people out there who think they are alone
Yes.
read and discover I'm not alone.
Right. I'm sure you have a story as well. What made you want to do this? Besides the fact that it was a great idea and
Right. It used to be, I worked downtown, and for example, I have a day where I can go to Chick-fil-A for lunch, and I leave my office, and I have X amount of time to go get lunch and maybe run an errand and do this and do that before I have to get back to who knows how many meetings and whatever. And I'm focused on doing what I have to do, and whatever's going on around me is not important. I don't have time to talk to strangers. I don't have time to be distracted by this or by that. And I came to realize when your focus is so narrow, you are missing so much. And taking just a little bit of time, not necessarily all the time, but just a little time to observe what else is going on around you. You never know who you're going to meet, what you're going to be taught, how you are going to be touched. You can't live life that way. You can't. There's nothing wrong with having your purpose and having your goals, but I think you're shortchanging yourself if you do not observe what's going on. So I started to not let that focus dominate my day, and I realized that everybody, like you said, everybody has a story, everybody has something to teach, something to learn, and I think that if I can generate an environment where someone can tell a story and teach somebody somewhere, who knows what good that does?
Absolutely.
Who knows how wonderful that is to discover that you're not alone? Can I give you a quick example?
Sure.
It was probably about 4 years ago. I was over in the neighborhood downtown of around 2nd East and 2nd South, I think. And this is a neighborhood of old buildings. The people that live there are, for lack of a better word, they're pretty colorful characters.
Right.
A lot of them seem to have been either formerly homeless, addiction issues, mental issues, other challenges, whatever.
Right.
Okay, so I'm walking down the street and I've got my camera around my neck, and most of the time, one of the guidelines that I have to use, say for example that you're out on a park bench having a coffee break, and I am walking towards you and I make eye contact with you. If I wave and smile and you wave and smile back, I'm going to stop and talk to you.
Right.
That's all there is to it.
Beware.
Right, exactly. In this particular case, though, this older woman, was sitting on her doorstep, apartment doorstep, smoking a cigarette, and she called out to me. She goes, "What you taking pictures of, honey?" And that's exactly how she sounded. And I mean, I didn't have to be asked twice.
Right.
It's very rare for somebody else to establish the conversation, but I was totally down. So I sat down with her and I told her what I was doing. And she goes, "Well, I got a story." I says, "All right." So I get out my recorder, and the next thing I know, she starts telling me about how a year earlier she had been assaulted by a pastor, and that every morning she wakes up and she can smell this man's breath on her. And she starts to talk to me about the therapy she's going through and how hard it's been. And at some point she takes me by the arm and she's hanging on to me for dear life. And I remember thinking, this is where I need to be. And it is totally okay to let her unload. Doesn't hurt me. Maybe she needs to let it out.
Yeah.
And this is her opportunity. And so I let her say everything that she wanted to say. And she was crying and really completely raw and vulnerable. And I remember thinking, I don't want to make anybody cry. I don't want to make anybody hurt. But if they are okay addressing their hurt with me, let it out.
Right.
Maybe that helps to heal.
And yes, absolutely. I was just going to say that's an avenue of healing that you're allowing to happen.
Exactly. So she tells me everything she's been going through, and then she dropped a bomb on me. She says to me that she's thinking about committing suicide. And I continued to let her say everything she had to say. And when she finally stopped, she still had her hand on me. And I put my other hand on top of hers. And I said to her, "Please don't hurt yourself. But not because I'm asking you not to hurt yourself." I said, "If you let me share this story with my audience, you're going to find there are other survivors out there. There are other people out there who can relate to what you're going through. And they will prove to you that you are not alone. And there's peace to be found in the fact that you are not alone." And she was initially a little hesitant. And I said to her, "Please think about the difference that you can still make." She goes, "All right, go ahead and share the story." All right. Now, this was very early on in the project, and I think I probably had maybe 5,000 followers at the time. And I went home, and it was a real debate about whether to post this story or not, because it was the first one that I recall really being painful painful, and,
Right.
and I didn't want to be accused of capitalizing on
Right,
somebody
right.
else's misfortune. And so I decided, you know what? She gave me permission to publish the story. I'm going to just transcribe what she said onto the page and see what happens. And about 13 or 14 people got onto that post and did exactly what I said they would. The comments were, I'm praying for you. Be strong. I know how you feel. I've been there. Don't let this idiot ruin your life. All these wonderful messages.
Right.
And you'd think that would be the end of the story, but there's more. 3 weeks later, I was back in that same neighborhood again, and I saw her again. Now, the first time I had interviewed her, she was very messily dressed, messy hair, totally unkempt.
Mm-hmm.
This next time I saw her, she was better dressed, and she had her hair all done up,
Aww.
and she saw me, and she yelled out, "Humans of Salt Lake! I saw the story! You saved my life!" That's the power
Yeah.
of the page. Validation.
Yeah.
And I think that when people live their lives going through whatever they go through, whether it's good or bad, and probably it happens more when it's bad, they think they're alone.
Yeah.
They think that their situation, whatever it is unique, and that nobody out there can relate. And I suppose in our individual, physical, social circles, it's probably easy to conclude. Nobody understands.
Yeah.
But there are strangers out there who feel the same way
Yeah.
about the same thing or very similar things. And when they can reach out to each other, even if it is completely anonymously or digitally, there's validation in that. I think about that woman, what a wonderful moment it must have been for her to read those comments and be touched and encouraged and maybe motivated to keep going just by the simple words of a stranger.
Yeah.
That's
I love
what
that.
this is all about.
Yeah.
And as soon as I think I have seen and heard everything,
Oh.
something comes along and then I
Right.
realize I haven't heard anything.
Right?
And
You're telling
it's,
me.
it's wonderful and scary all at the same time, because I got to go back to my guidelines. It's funny, sometimes someone will tell me something controversial and they'll be afraid of what the reaction will be. Well, let me put your mind at ease. I'm not going to just take your story and put your portrait up there and throw you to the wolves.
Right.
I monitor my comment section on the page
Yeah, that's
very closely. And as soon as I see somebody being abusive or rude or judgmental, the first signal that I give to that person to knock it off is to delete their comment. And most of the time that works.
Yeah.
Every once in a while someone will push the envelope and they'll say, "Oh, I see you deleted my comment." Well, you made a horse's ass of yourself in my house.
Right? Exactly.
Let's evaluate.
Yeah.
Not allowed.
Yeah.
Not allowed. And people can accuse me of censorship all they want. The way I see it, projects like ours need to be safe places of expression.
Yeah.
You don't have to agree. You can easily disagree, and that's totally okay. But you're not allowed to be threatened.
Yeah.
And hurt somebody who disagrees with you. You are not allowed to be ugly in my house.
I love it.
Case closed.
Yeah.
And if you don't like it, well, there's a big unlike button at the top of the page. You can
Right.
hit it,
You
and hit
get
the road.
it.
It's really that simple.
God, bye.
And don't let the door hit you.
Right.
It's just, and it's a shame
Yeah.
because people think that they can just say whatever they want because they're behind their screens and they're in their
Yeah.
tiny little cubicle and nobody can get to them and nobody knows who they are. Well, when you make a rude comment or if you swear or are otherwise destructive, the whole world is
Yeah.
seeing this. Is that how you really want to be known?
Right. And it's
Not in my house.
it's not important. I mean, at those things, like, you don't always need to say, if somebody's being vulnerable and sharing their story, let them and have it be okay.
Exactly.
And,
yes.
but a lot of people do that in fear because
Yes.
they're too afraid to tell their story.
Mhm.
And so they put up those blocks and then they fight anyone who's trying to be open and make a difference.
Yeah.
So,
And I try to make sure everybody knows, especially when it is a a vulnerable, sensitive, raw sort of story that I will be watching. And sometimes, well, let me rephrase. The page and the project, as I hope you can also relate, is not about me or you as one single person. It's about gathering stories, wisdom, inspiration, motivation, tragedy, whatever it happens to be, but it's not about us.
Right.
And yet, I can be walking the streets of Salt Lake City, and someone will drive by and they'll yell out, "Humans of Salt Lake, we love you!"
That's awesome.
And I don't know how they know who I am. It's a little scary, but it's wonderful. And sometimes I will talk to people, they'll tell me a story, and it will really be something special. And I will say to them, now, you and I are going to part ways, and we may never cross paths again, but I have a little piece of wisdom that I get to carry for the rest of my life. Every single person I talk to teaches me something. Every single person has some way of adding a little bit more. Most of the time, I can go back and read those stories and be touched again, and be reminded that we are all in a struggle. We are all challenged. We are all afraid of something. We are all dreaming and hoping and waiting for miracles, whatever it happens to be. We are all faced with weaknesses and shame and fear and worry about judgment. But I think that when we put ourselves out there and share our experiences like that, somehow we learn more about each other. And I think that as long as we are always trying to learn about each other and understand each other and maybe even respect each other, that's how we're going to survive.
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much, Mike, for the work that you're doing. Thank you so much for coming on and opening up and telling your story.
It's a pleasure.
And that mug is yours to keep,
Well,
so
thank
you'll
you.
always have a piece of not only my story when I tell it to you, but also my coffee mug.
Sounds good. Well, thank you very much.
All right, well, cheers.
Cheers to you.